As we get closer and closer to Halloween, you see more and more TV shows and commercials with witches flying around on broomsticks. Have you ever wondered how people started to be accused of witchcraft? Today I'm going to tell you about the Salem witch trials. First, I'm going to tell you what the Salem witch trials are. Then I'm going to explain the first case of witchcraft to you. Lastly, I'm going to tell you about some of the effects of the Salem witch trials. First, I'm going to tell you what the Salem witch trials are. They occurred in the early 1690s, more specifically in 1692 and 1693, and they were a series of witchcraft accusations in the small community of Salem, Massachusetts. And there were many witchcraft accusations, more than there should have been, for different reasons. Some of those were because people were high-strung because of recent wars with Britain and France. There was the recent smallpox epidemic, and there was hostile neighboring Native Americans. And at this time, women were also becoming more outspoken, and people did not like that, so they tried to shut them down with accusing them of witchcraft. And these witches have said to have been associated with the devil, and some were even said to have written their name in his black book. So now that I have told you some background information about the Salem witch trials, I am going to move on to the first case of witchcraft. And the first case of witchcraft is very sad for some people because it includes two little girls. Both of them are related to the minister Samuel Parris. The first one was his daughter Elizabeth Parris, who was 9 years old. And the second was his niece Abigail Williams, who was 11 years old. And these girls started acting weird after playing a game with the family's Caribbean slave Tabitua. They started having violent convulsions and screaming uncontrollably, and they were taken to the doctor where they were diagnosed as being bewitched. And soon after, 5 other girls started acting this way, and then 3 women were accused of bewitching them. The first of them being Tabitua, the Parris family slave. The second was a homeless woman named Sarah Good, and last was a elderly woman named Sarah Osborne. And these women were taken to court, and Tabitua pleaded guilty. One reasoning behind this is that she could have acted as an informer for the court, and she told the court that there were many other witches like her and that they sold their souls to the devil in exchange for supernatural powers. The other 2 women pleaded not guilty, but now with modern medicine and technology, we have figured out that there are many different more reasonable causes why the girls acted this way, including epilepsy, child abuse, delusional psychosis, and convulsive ergotism. And convulsive ergotism occurs when you eat bread or rye that has been infected with a fungus ergo, and it can induce vomiting, the feeling that something's crawling under your skin, delusions, convulsions, and screaming fits. And that shows very many similar symptoms to schizophrenia. Now that I have told you about the first case of witchcraft, I am going to move on to the more solemn part of the witchcraft trials, which are the deaths. There are many different effects from the Salem witch trials. The first of those was a court created to decide if the accused were witches or not, and this was called the Court of Oyer, which is to listen, and Terminer, which is to decide. There was one main judge and 7 men underneath him that helped decide if the accused were witches or not. And from this court, there were 19 people that were sentenced to death, and there were also 2 dogs that were sentenced to death because they were said to have been bewitched. And there is a common misconception with the Salem witch trials that the witches were either burned at the stake or drowned, but in all of the accounts, the witches were hung at Gallows Hill. Now that I have told you about the Salem witch trials, we can piece together how people have started to be accused of witchcraft. Today, I told you about the Salem witch trials. First, I told you what they are. Second, I told you about the first case of witch trials. Lastly, I told you about some of the effects of the Salem witch trials. So now when you see kids walking around on Halloween with witch costumes, you know some of the history.